Hello again. For another in the series of looking at the great Advent antiphons that give us the hymn O Come, O Come, Emmanuel. One for each day between the 17th and the 23rd of December. Today's is given its Latin title, and sorry for my Latin pronunciation, O Clavis David, O Key of David. This is what the text says. It's words traditionally said at evensong. O Key of David, and sceptre of the house of Israel, you open, and no one can shut. You shut, and no one can open. Come and lead the prisoners from the prison house, those who dwell in darkness and the shadow of death. That text takes words from two bits in the prophet Isaiah. We hear a lot of him throughout Advent and in these antiphons in particular. And it's very fitting today. If you've taken part in our church service this morning, then you'll have heard the two readings. One from the first book of Samuel, looking at God's promise to David, that he would build not a stone temple, but a living temple of his descendants. That it would be through David that God's promise would be fulfilled. And then, in our Gospel, we have the angel coming to Mary to announce that she was to be the mother of Jesus. The fulfillment of God's ancient promise to David. The birth of a Messiah from David's line. And that's where we're headed, of course, on Friday, not long to go now. But these words take us back to David. And in them we hear, of course, the promise of the King of David's line. But I'm just going to read the two bits of Isaiah that inspired them. First is from Isaiah chapter 22. And God is speaking through Isaiah of his promise to Eliakim, one of David's high priests. I will place on his shoulder the key of the house of David. He shall open, and no one shall shut. He shall shut, and no one will open. The promise is about access to the temple, the presence of God that God would bring. It's about new beginnings and forgiveness. It's about the authority of God to give life, to give hope. And then the second part is from a bit later on, from Isaiah chapter 42. I am the Lord. I've called you in righteousness. I've taken you by the hand and kept you. I've given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison those who sit in darkness. I am the Lord. That is my name. Wonderful words that Jesus took to himself when he began his public ministry. In his home synagogue at Nazareth, he said that was why he'd come. He had come to set people free, to give hope, light, healing. That's what Jesus said he was about. That's what he was unlocking for the world. And that's what he unlocks for us. Now, especially today, many of us are still reeling from last night's announcements about more restrictions on Christmas celebrations. But our hearts cannot be locked. Our love, our hope, our trust in God cannot be shut down. And while these coming days may be tough, and while Christmas won't be what we'd hoped it would be, Christ will still be born into us. His key will unlock our hearts and our freedom, even if doors remain closed. The gate of heaven doesn't, for it has been open forever. As always, we're going to pray for a moment, and I'll read that verse again. So just be still and sit comfortably. Take a couple of slow, strong breaths to centre and still yourself. And for a moment, acknowledge to God how you're feeling, and especially how the image of lock and key might make you feel at the moment. And now imagine a door of hope and of light being unlocked and opened. What would that mean to you? Talk to God about that. In your heart, in your mind. Speak with him and listen to him. What would it mean to you this Christmas to be more free than ever, even in these circumstances, more free than ever, to live, to love, to hope, to worship? In your heart, ask God through Jesus for the freedom he longs for you. Hear those words again. O key of David and sceptre of the house of Israel, you open and no one can shut, you shut and no one can open. Come and lead the prisoners from the prison house, those who dwell in darkness and the shadow of death.